Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Eloise. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome to my perfume channel. So I've been meaning to make some videos and upload some reviews on fragrances that I've been loving. I was traveling and I got sick while traveling, and so I lost my voice, and it was a little tough to make videos without a voice, but I'm doing better, although I sound a little scratchy in the throat. I have some hot tea here today, and I could always edit out any coughing fits that I have, but I'm better and I'm super excited to talk about today's fragrance. This is new to my collection, Bengale Rouge by Papillon Artisan Perfumes. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Bengale Rouge or the house of Papillon. So I only recently learned about this perfume house, and I heard some really great reviews about Bengale Rouge, but not so many people are talking about this fragrance. I also smelled Angelique from the house and Rose Tobacco, which I ended up ordering, but I don't think that I hear too much buzz about Papillon in general or Bengale Rouge. And I will say I was reluctant to order this fragrance because a lot of reviewers immediately compare this to Shalimar. And in my mind, when I hear Shalimar, although it is a classic, all-time, beautiful amber fragrance, vanilla-centric amber fragrance, it could be seen as a little vintagey, it could be seen as heavy, and when you mention vintagey fragrances, in my mind, I'm thinking something overly mature, something very heavy, and maybe a bit too much in compared to the fragrances of today. But that is not the case. I'm so glad that I added this to my collection. I think it's a beautiful fragrance. So Bengale Rouge was released in 2019. I'm not sure if Rose Tobacco was Liz Moore's first release. That was in 2014. I have to look into that. And the inspiration behind this fragrance is Liz Moore's cat, a Bengal cat by the name of Mimi. And I guess the idea was to recreate the warmth and the fuzziness and the comfort of the cat, Mimi. And I'm not a cat person, but I will say, as I speak about the fragrance, I will say that that is captured. There's an aspect of this where that is absolutely captured. But all in all, this is an Oriental Amber fragrance. At the beginning, when I first got this, I thought this was pretty simple. But I will say that as I wore the fragrance a few times, and as I experienced it throughout the day, as I, of course, overanalyzed what this smells like at the opening, in the mid, the dry down, there's a lot going on here. It's more complex than my initial impression upon smelling this. So it is my scent of the day. I have it on both wrists for about 4 or 5 hours now, and I'm going to apply it again, just so I can talk about the experience. The bottle is absolutely adorable. I love the shape. It's a very nice glass. The cap is a little weird. It's a little snug. It's plastic. It's fine. The atomizer is fine. It's a very nice looking bottle. It's really cute in my opinion. It looks really nice in my collection. This is a beautiful fragrance. This starts out to my nose as a citrus fragrance, and it is apparent to me that it's an amber. Right from the get-go, right out of the gate, I get that this is an amber. There's something a little sweet in here, never overly sweet, but it is coming off citrusy. And I don't think there are any citrus notes listed in the composition on the website or Fragrantica for that matter, but it does come off citrusy. But it took me a few times of experiencing this to realize what starts to come through within minutes after spraying the fragrance. So my initial notes when I first sprayed this was that the citrus remained with the fragrance and with the scent profile for about the first hour. But what really happens here is that spices start to come through. Not spices like pepper, not that kind of spice. Spices like cardamom, that kind of warm, comforting, aromatic spice. It's there, but it's also there with a little bit of sweetness. Now the fragrance has sweetness from a couple of different components here. You have tonka, you have vanilla, you also have honey. None of those make this overly sweet. It never crosses the line and becomes an overly sweet fragrance. I get the aromatic spices, which could be coming from the myrrh. So my initial note was that this stays uplifted, that the amber is a delicate, slightly sweetened amber that remains bright, and it's a little uplifted for the entirety of the first hour of wear. But upon reapplication and experiencing this more than once, I know that the uplifting, bright nature of the fragrance in that first hour is coming from these warm spices. Not that it's cardamom, there is no cardamom listed here, but I would gather that maybe it's coming from the myrrh. Myrrh is balsamic, spicy, resinous, warm. So you have this amber that's slightly aromatic and slightly sweetened. And then I want to say that it takes about 5 to 10 minutes where you get this very, very, very slight animalic note. I'm afraid to even say this. I'm not sure if I remember whether other reviewers have said that this has animalic aspects to it. Maybe I heard it somewhere. I'm not sure if I read it or if it was in a YouTube reviewer's description of the fragrance. There's nothing animalic about this, but there is a slight something that's reminiscent, and it goes so far, which is not far at all, perhaps a tiny facet of something slightly animalic. This is not an animalic fragrance, but maybe a slight touch that's a little bit reminiscent of Frederic Malle's Musc Ravageur, as far as that fragrance would take anything animalic. And in my opinion, that is not an animalic fragrance, but there is a tiny something, and I think that it could be connected to the honey in here. What happens next within the first hour is that the honey starts to come through, not only the scent of the honey, not only the sweetness and that golden hue that you could almost picture by smelling this fragrance, but also the syrupy consistency of the honey starts to come through. So the consistency of this fragrance gets a little syrupy, so you have warmth. It's most definitely a warm amber fragrance. It's most definitely a little spiced. It's most definitely a little sweetened in such a raw way, and it most definitely has the consistency of a golden raw honey. It's really a magnificent fragrance, and I really enjoy smelling it out of the bottle. I get this like amber citrus warm honey fragrance, and as you get through this first hour of the fragrance, I feel like it becomes a warmer and warmer, cozier amber fragrance. That brightness that's coming from what I thought was citrus or maybe spices kind of moves a little away from the fragrance, and it becomes warmer and it becomes more focused on honey to my nose. So it becomes this golden, syrupy amber fragrance that starts to get powdery, and there's this veil of floral that sort of like creeps in as it develops. Now I know there's rose in here. To my nose, I am not detecting rose per se as a flower. I feel like it's coming off more just like an unknown powdered floral that combines with this golden hue is what I'm imagining. In my mind, the honey is this golden hue that wraps around this slightly aromatic amber fragrance. And the floral in here is very delicate. It's delicate and it gets powdery. And the fragrance as a whole does get powdery as it dries down. It dries down to a powdery amber fragrance that is very honey dominant in my opinion, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And it reminds me a little bit of the way the amber comes off in MFK's Grand Soir. I'm not saying that this smells like Grand Soir, but the way the amber is interpreted, this one is actually more delicate. And I think at some point someone even mentioned Le Lion by Chanel is obviously an amber fragrance, and someone mentioned this fragrance in reviewing Bengale Rouge. But this one is very, it's an amber that is all about the labdanum that comes off smoky and leathery. This takes amber into a completely different direction. One of my favorite fragrances as well. And Grand Soir here is more aromatic, more vanillic than Bengale Rouge. But the way the amber comes off in Grand Soir, in other words, it's not super smoky, it's not super heavy. It is giving me the impression that the amber aspect of Bengale Rouge is sort of in that same wheelhouse, so to speak. I'm not saying that they smell the same. I'm saying that the amber here is in the same realm in terms of how light it is. This is more delicate. This is a more delicate amber fragrance. And it's definitely more of an oriental, honey-dominant amber fragrance, in my opinion. Because when this dries down, I feel that it is all about the honey. There is oak moss in here. So the notes listed are sandalwood, Turkish rose, honey, vanilla, sweet myrrh. So earlier when I said sweetness is coming from several different notes in here, sweet myrrh is possibly another source of sweetness. But again, this fragrance never gets sweet. It's not even as sweet as Grand Soir, and I don't think Grand Soir is super sweet. There is oak moss, there's tonka in here, which is a warm sweetness. I love tonka in fragrances. Oak moss can come off woody, a little earthy. Some even say a little like patchouli, a little leathery even. I don't know that I'm getting a leather vibe from Bengale Rouge. In terms of what it feels like, I feel that it is a little fuzzy. I feel that it is a little syrupy, and it is warm and enveloping and delicate and powdery, and it has this veil of a floral component or nuance that sort of surrounds this beautiful amber fragrance. I think it's a stunning fragrance. I think in terms of longevity, I'm not getting the longevity that some other people are getting with this, but then again, I'm not an oversprayer with fragrances, and maybe with certain ones I need to spray a bit more, but I will keep trying. I do like the consistency of the fragrance, and I have a hard time talking about when it is appropriate to wear fragrances in terms of day wear or evening wear. There are a lot of fragrances that to me come off as very versatile. They can go from day to evening. That's because I'll wear almost anything, even to the office. But with me, I think I'll wear almost anything to the office. And what I do is kind of a conservative field. I'm an attorney. I go to an office with attorneys and suits, and I go to court, and I nonetheless feel like I will wear almost anything in my collection. I say in my collection because my collection probably doesn't have anything that would be a super offensive. So I have a hard time saying that a fragrance is evening only. Maybe I would say Le Lion, Chanel's Le Lion. To me, this is an evening fragrance. So I am not spraying this and going to the office, not because I think anyone would be offended by it, more because in my collection, this is something that represents, in my mind, an evening fragrance. For whatever reason, I feel like this is just super sexy. Smoky, sexy, leathery. So is this dressier than, say, a Grand Soir by MFK? Yes, it is. I will say, I think I said it in the beginning, this is not a fragrance that anyone needs to fear is going to be super vintagey or overly mature. That's not what this is. Frédéric Malle's Musc Ravageur and MFK's Grand Soir, those fragrances, this, to me, it fits right into the versatility of those fragrances. And just as current as those are, so is this one, in my personal opinion. So if you haven't tried Papillon's Bengale Rouge and you like amber fragrances, I would really try this one out, especially if you have an appreciation for amber fragrances that have that warmth from honey, because I think that the honey is or plays a dominant role here. But again, this is more complex than one might think. The oak moss, the myrrh, there are a lot of notes in here that are multifaceted, that come through at different times, where I'm smelling it and I'm thinking, I smell a little sweetness, I smell a lot of the honey, but I'm getting something citrusy, but I'm getting something spice like a cardamom, and I'm getting something earthy, but then I'm getting something very warm, and then texture-wise, I'm getting something a little fuzzy, and I'm absolutely getting the syrupy overall feel of this very warm, enveloping fragrance. So what can I say? I can say no more. I think this is beautiful, beautiful creation. Great combination of notes, wonderfully blended. I think that this is a fragrance that should be tried if you enjoy amber fragrances, an Oriental Amber Fragrance. So this is Papillon's Bengale Rouge. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate your support and your comments. If you've tried Bengale Rouge or another fragrance from Papillon, please let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Until next time, bye guys.